Hey guys, and welcome back to yet another episode. Today I thought we'd do something a little bit different than a normal review or a pickup kind of video. Today I wanted to talk to you about the Neo Geo, which is one of my favorite consoles really ever, even discounting the fact that it's, I guess, a console and an arcade system at the same time. But I'm a huge fan of the Neo Geo. I've always loved it, and I kind of wanted to share with you guys my story with the Neo Geo, how I came about it, and how my run-ins with it over the years. Since I was one of the few people lucky enough to actually spend my formative video gaming years around the time that the Neo Geo was really hot. So if we go back to the very beginning, when I try to think back to the first time that I played a Neo Geo, it'll always stick out in my head because it was in 1992, and it was at this big two-story arcade where I used to live at in Michigan. And at the time, Street Fighter II was really big. It had just come out, and everybody was playing Street Fighter II. I mean, it was the game. Lines of people just going all the way through the arcade just to get a piece of this thing. I mean, it was crazy. Around that time, they also had an MVS cabinet with two games in it. And the two games were Fatal Fury, the first one, and the Super Spy. And funny enough, if you're curious about either one of those games, I've done reviews on both of them, so you can always go check those out. But those were the first two games I ever saw on the MVS on the Neo Geo. I got hooked on Fatal Fury 1, and that's the reason why, even to this day, it's still my favorite Neo Geo game, period. The Super Spy was really cool at the time. I wouldn't say it's timeless. It's still cool now, but it gets old. It's kind of repetitive. But seeing it the first time in the arcade with the giant characters and the graphics being so far beyond anything else I'd seen at the time, it blew me away for sure. But Fatal Fury was just something special. I always loved having the C button map to the throw, and I loved that you could actually do two players against the AI, which was really unique at the time for an arcade game like that. Fast forward a couple of years, or maybe not even that long, maybe another year or two, and I remember playing Samurai Showdown 2 at a roller skating rink back around that same time. It would have been like 92 or 93. And man, it was awesome when I played Samurai Showdown 2. I loved it. And I would just kind of run into Neo Geo machines here and there. But most of the time, back in the early days of the Neo Geo, you didn't really have that big of a variety on the MVS cabs. Usually it was just, Fatal Fury or Samurai Showdown. And that was kind of it for a while until the library sort of expanded a little bit later on. And then you had, the Metal Slugs and King of Fighters and all that good stuff. Looking back, another one that I really spent a lot of time with was Samurai Showdown 3. I had a big screen. It wasn't an HD TV at the time, but it was one of the bigger ones. I'm trying to think of other machines that had something similar to it, but Virtua Fighter 3 was kind of similar. It had like a really big screen on it. But yeah, so we had a Samurai Showdown 3 on one of these big screens at an arcade local to me. That would have been around 1996. And I fell in love with Samurai Showdown 3. I know it can be kind of polarizing. A lot of people talk about it as a black sheep of the series, but I love the new art style. The characters looked awesome, and it was definitely a change of pace from the first two. But I really got into it, and I played the hell out of it back then. A couple of years later, I ended up getting a Neo Geo Pocket. That was huge. I picked it over the Game Boy Color at the time. And that would have been 1999. I loved that little system. It was the best, man. It had decent battery life. All the games were good. Like every game I ever bought on the Neo Geo Pocket Color was just awesome. Still to this day, it's one of the systems and sets of games I really regret selling. I did get rid of them later, but I always, that's always the one that that bothered me was getting rid of that one. I still I'm kicking myself for that even today. I was buying import games a lot. The Card Fighters Clash, the SNK Capcom, and then the fighting version of it too. I remember buying import copies of Gal Fighters, a bunch of the fighting games. The US releases, the two games that I was just completely obsessed with back at the time were Dark Arms and a game called Crush Roller, which is an arcade port as well, and it's kind of like Pac-Man but with a paintbrush. But it's really addictive. I had a ton of fun playing it. I used to take the Neo Geo Pocket Color with me to high school, and I would spend my entire class periods playing Crush Roller and and like I said, in Dark Arms. I never had the opportunity to own one of the AES systems back in its heyday. It was just too damn expensive, and the games, you know, they were hundreds of dollars a piece. And you know, when you're working with, you know, your parents' money and it's not yours yet, and you don't have, you know, your job or your thing squared away, and you're trying to convince somebody to buy you a console, it's pretty hard to sell a set of parents on the Neo Geo considering the cost of the games. And it was difficult to even find them back then, even in the retail stores. Very few places actually carried them. Even still, I did get the chance to play on a few different AESs over the years. I specifically remember going to, you know, house parties where people would have, you know, an AES. And I remember a house party we went to in like 2001, right when King of Fighters 2001 came out. And somebody brought their AES and brand new copy of 01. And they had the 2 joystick controllers, which were awesome. But yeah, I mean, those were great times. But like I said, you know, I never had the opportunity to own one until a little bit later. I still don't have an AES. I've never had one. You know, over the years at conventions or things like that, I would see arcade cabinets or AES systems. Another game that stands out to me that was a little bit later on was SVC Chaos. We had a local bowling alley near me that actually had an SVC Chaos machine, and I got really hooked on it. I really dug that game. It kind of flew under the radar. A lot of people aren't huge fans of it, but I really dug it. It was something kind of different. So I played the hell out of that. Fast forwarding, you know, we'd have to go up to about 2012, so only about 4 years ago now. That's when I got my first Neo Geo CD. And I wanted to start collecting some of the CD games because they were much more reasonable to pick up than the cart games. So I picked up my first Neo Geo CD in 2012, and now I've got about, I would say it's like 85% of the total collection of Neo Geo CD stuff, which, you know, I think I'm going to stop here because the only ones I'm missing are some of the really expensive ones, and I can get those on MVS much cheaper. But yeah, I love the Neo Geo CD. I've actually got 2 of them now. One of them is modded for English language in games, and the other for Japanese. And the reason you do that is because there's actually some censorship and things you can get around by doing that. And the nice thing with the CD consoles is it's just a system mod to change the language. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to get a separate system to do that. They all kind of act the same. It's just like a switch that you enable. But yeah, so there are some region differences that made me do that. And again, you know, the CD was great for much more reasonable prices on games, and some of them has some really great like remastered audio. But you know, the problems with the CD for me were that they just weren't that reliable. I've had to replace the lasers in both my Neo CD consoles probably, I'd say, at least 2 or 3 times a piece. And luckily the lasers are pretty cheap and easy to get, but still it's a pain in the ass. And the load times, yeah, we all know they suck. Some of the earlier games, they don't really have much in the way of load times, but the later ones, if you have an opportunity to get them on MVS instead, definitely do it, because games like Last Blade and Overtop and things like that on CD just take forever. Anyway, outside of the Neo Geo CD, I could talk about that thing forever. I didn't end up getting my first MVS board until this year, in 2016, which is why I also wanted to make this video this year, because this is kind of like a big checkpoint in this kind of Neo Geo journey throughout, you know, ever since it's been out. I just got it was a 1-slot MVS board. I found a good deal on one, and you know, the prices on the MVS carts are much more reasonable most of the time than the AES versions. You know, and what I do is I try to pick up some of the more expensive CD games on MVS or some of the later ones, so I can kind of eliminate the load times and whatnot. But you know, I was really pumped to get a working MVS board, and it's always running in my cabinet now. It's so cool to finally have, you know, the Neo Geo arcade experience that I first saw back in, you know, 1992. Back in that arcade in Michigan, finally, you know, in your home, and actually be able to play it like that. It's awesome. So yeah, guys, I mean, that's my whole story with the Neo Geo from the first time, you know, I saw it down through the years, and my experiences with SNK's products and, you know, the Neo Geo Pocket. It's always been special to me, the Neo has, and I think it'll always continue to be. You know, it's been over 20 years now, and, you know, I still play it regularly, and, you know, I still try to look for certain games and and it's been an awesome journey. And you know, I plan to keep picking up stuff for the Neo Geo, you know, for years to come, for sure. But yeah, that's really my story with it. I love the Neo, and I can see why it's got such a huge following online, and it's really cool to see that it's got such a big community behind it. Hopefully, it's got lots and lots of years left, especially with SNK just recently getting their name back and all that from playing more. So hopefully, we'll see some more stuff in the future. But definitely leave me some of your stories and some of your thoughts, like your first impressions when you guys, you know, first played the Neo Geo, well, way back in the day, or for maybe some of you guys that are a little bit younger, you know, when was it that you first played it? Like, what was the game that really made you go, damn, this thing is awesome, or, you know, I want to play more on this console? I definitely love to hear everybody's stories, that's for sure. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Like I said, this is a little bit different kind of thing. I'd like to thank you all, of course, for watching, subscribing, and commenting. And until next time, stay classic.